Hello, hi, and welcome to the Terminal Podcast, where in the end, it's all about the numbers. Welcome to Old Man Yelling at Clouds December, which is going to lead perfectly into RDAT 2022, which is said like a 20th century phone number. There's another tease about that coming soon. But first, we have 3 flights that have landed safely into my fictional terminal tonight. Names and faces are on the screen, but who will we actually be listening to? We could learn about our guests by asking which colleges they applied to so we can immediately form an opinion based solely on a childhood decision. But something more telling in an instant is simply stating where you're flying in from, whatever pod or site you like to promote, and which track you think is better. Takeover, Ether, or Black Republican. If you don't know the songs, base your answers off the titles so we can correctly judge your musical taste. So we'll start in alphabetical order. That would mean, Brandon, you're up.
All right. So I'm from, I guess, what'd you say, the pod I'm calling in from? So that's Decatur, right?
Where you coming from? That's whatever you want to promote is the question. But where you coming from?
I'm from Decatur. So out here in Decatur, I have nothing to promote because I don't endorse things. Just because not everybody, except for Martin's, everybody else's stuff is not good. And my favorite track, oh my God.
It's one of the 3.
I think I'm gonna go with Takeover because after I listen to Ether, like I feel bad. Like, like it just feels like I shouldn't have listened to that. That was mean spirited. Like I didn't want to do it. Takeover is mean spirited, but it's like, oh yeah, you can actually just enjoy this. It's not as mean. So yeah, I think I'm gonna go with Takeover. I'm a bit
It's not as harsh as Ether. It's not as harsh as Ether.
Yeah, I mean one's literally called Ether, so yeah, I guess it kind of connotes the idea. But
Fair point. All right, alphabetically, I believe L is before M. So,
hey, I'm coming in from Winder, Georgia.
Woo.
We got an airport right behind me. It's terrible. Little bitty planes, not real planes. I can't sleep at night because of the planes. Also, there's a railroad that goes right by my house, so that's great. I will promote my website, lannyfarmer.com. It's where all my comedy stuff is, all my upcoming shows, some videos, and a blog. And my favorite track of those, I've never heard any of those songs, but I will go with Black Republican. That sounds crazy. Sounds controversial, like it might get me canceled. So I'm all for it.
Black Republican is actually the Jay-Z and Nas track together.
I've heard of Jay-Z. I know who he is. Yeah.
So that is a fine select. There really is no bad selection out of those 3. So that's
okay.
Fine. So,
well, that's good.
And Mark, you're last.
Yeah, I'm coming in from the Boston area, a little bit north of Boston. I really have nothing to promote at the moment. No website or podcast or anything else. And my favorite song out of the 3, because it's probably the only one I heard, but I've listened to it many times, is definitely Takeover.
Okay.
I like if it's correct me wrong, that's the Door sample. Nas.
Oh, did he sample the Doors?
Yes.
He did. Yeah, that's Kanye sampled the Doors.
It's the Steven Tyler. Yeah. He screams like, "Come on!" Yeah. So yeah. All right.
That's my favorite track.
Well, active conscription came to an end in 1973, meaning my generation, this generation, we're the first without a mandated war to our names. Instead, we spent the time with leisure activities, none more prevalent than the pixelated images on a screen. Here's a quick example of who did you prefer? Kelly Kapowski, Jesse Spano, or Lisa Turtle? I will also accept Stacey Karasi. No. Brandon, Lisa Turtle, Kelly Kapowski, Jesse Spano. These names don't ring a bell. Mark, they ring a bell for you. I have to ring a bell for you. So who out of those 3, Laney, have you never heard of those 3
What crazy pornography are you watching?
So
Jesse who?
You are clearly not of my age range then, because all the rest of us watch Saved by the Bell.
Oh, Saved by the Bell. You should have said that. I don't know their names.
Oh,
Yeah.
I just know them as hot ladies.
Yeah.
but
Yep.
but we all watched Saved by the Bell. None of us liked it. No one would ever say, "Oh, this is my favorite. This was a great Saved by the Bell episode." But we all watched it because there was nothing else on, so we watched it. The same can be said about films, which lead to the game that I call poorly explained movies. Actually, it was called that on the cruise that I was on, and I'm stealing the idea from them because it was pretty fun. The explanation is in the title. It's as simple as if the question was, a man takes 3 rodents around the world, the correct answer would be Alvin and the Chipmunks. Now, they are poorly explained, but these are all movies. Now, that one is a movie that, while you've heard about the Chipmunks, you probably didn't see it because no one really liked Jason Lee that much to go and see the film with him and a bunch of, So, but you know it existed. You know it was a film. All these films are films that you've probably seen. Like you just said, like that, they're all you're going to see. So, I should have told you to get a piece of paper and a pen. We're going to use the honor system because if you really want to win that bad, then congratulations. But everything is a game. All the world's a stage, and we are all but players. So I'm going to go through a variety of move explanations, and you will keep the tracks. You will keep track on it. He goes and gets a pencil. But I'm not really saying anything more than 12 questions. 3 rounds. I'm going to start with easy ones, and when we come back to the answers, 12 questions, 3 rounds. Start off with easy. When we get back to the answers in the end, the winner will get the final gate call, which is 30 seconds to say whatever you want to say before you get on your plane and leave the terminal for the evening. So, any questions?
What are we doing? Got up to get a pen.
I'm going to read movie titles, movie descriptions like I did previously.
Right.
There is going to be easy, medium, and difficult ones. They all have point totals, and you'll keep track, and we'll come back afterwards and see what we say. Somebody's going to win and get 30 seconds at the end.
All right.
Yeah, I think I did that pretty well.
Cool.
All right.
Let's do it.
Everybody ready? All right.
Yeah.
So, 10-point questions. These are easy, relatively speaking. So, here's the first one. A 13-year-old gets a job, moves to the big city, gets a loft, then returns home. A 13-year-old boy gets a job, moves to the big city, gets a loft, then returns home.
Do we just shout it out if we think we know the answer?
Just write it down. You can shout it out at the end. We'll shout out at the end. The second movie, 10-point category. A grandfather reads a story to a sick boy. A grandfather reads a story to a sick boy. That's the second film. Third film, a small town girl moves to Los Angeles, walks the streets, and meets a businessman. A small town girl moves to Los Angeles, walks the streets, and meets a businessman. And the fourth, relatively easy, poorly described film is quite possibly the greatest collection of Black comedians in one film, and they're not supposed to be funny. The fourth description is quite possibly the greatest collection of Black comedians in one film, in the modern age at the very least, and they're not supposed to be funny. Those are the 4 in the easy category. The puzzled looks is what it kind of is, but as I say, these are all films that you've seen or heard of, and they're all within the last 20 to 25 years. So I'm old, but gosh, am I that old? No, I guess it's actually a little 35 to 40 years out, but yeah, nothing's too old. Nothing's too long.
Oh.
All
I think
right,
I
so
know it.
these next four are a little bit harder, but these are all four films that I know you've seen. I know you've seen all four of these films, but these descriptions are not much better. So
Are these all?
here's
Are
the
these still 10? Are these 10 points or are these?
no,
they
these
going
are
up?
now 20 points. These are now 20
right.
point
All right.
questions. I told you a little bit harder, a little bit harder. But so here's the first one. A man has his bike stolen and his friend's actions help get it back. A man has his bike stolen and his friend's actions help get it back.
You had me at bicycle.
Second movie. A recent college graduate takes over the family business. A recent college graduate takes over the family business. I literally just watched this movie the other day, and yeah. Third film. A girl suffers through a hazing ritual and later has her first kiss. A girl suffers through a hazing ritual and later has her first kiss. And the last film in the 20-point category, a butler sees all, invests wisely, and ends up on a boat. A butler sees all, invests wisely, and ends up on a boat. So, if all of those were relatively very popular films that were the descriptions weren't, these are not going to get any easier. So these are the 30-point questions.
Sheesh. I'm going ahead and book it now, boys. I'm coming in last. I'll tell you right off the top. This ain't gonna go.
We'll see. You never know. All right. So the first 30-point question, 30-point movie. A woman watches her older sister being courted by two men, then gets a chance with one in the very end. A woman watches her older sister being courted by two men, then gets a chance with one in the very end. The next film, a man is embarrassed by his father. Then his friend steals his girl. A man is embarrassed by his father. Then his friend steals his girl. All right. Next film, a dead man has to prove he's not afraid. A dead man has to prove he's not afraid. Last one. These are 30-point questions, so these aren't necessarily. These are still popular films. This is the last question. A man is forced to cross-dress for employment. All right.
I don't want to jinx myself, but I think I got all these.
Okay. Well, this transition is brought to you by my new most popular meme in the last couple of months. I can't show it, and I'm not technologically capable to post it up here and show it. But everybody, it's a 20th century picture of Nas and Lauryn Hill, and the greatest female MC ever says, "What is this shit?" And Nasty Nas responds, "I don't know. They call it mumble rap."
I'm not gonna have but so much mumble rap slander on this program.
I'm not either.
There's an artistry to it. You just
There is, but
gotta open your mind to it.
The artists that are in those memes, which is Nas and Lauryn Hill, are both two artists that will be featured in the RDAT 2022, which, as I described, is the 20th century number before, but it is short for the Rap Debut Album Tournament. which is a Terminal podcast series starting in the new year. And despite the well-deserved and numerous awards and accolades for the miseducation of Lauryn Hill, you'll have to actually tune in to find out why it did not make the RDAT in 2022. If that's not a tease, I don't know what is. I don't know what is to be said for rap today, is really what it comes down to. You mentioned not trying to hurt mumble rap, and it could sound like us being old timers talking about the latest tracks that I haven't heard of. Current heavy hitters like Lil Durk, or Lil Baby, or Da Baby, YG, Young Boy, or Young Thug.
Young Thug is actually pretty good.
I'd rather reminisce about the art form I grew up with heavy hitters like the Old Dirty Bastard, Fat Joe, Big Daddy Kane, and Crazy Drazy of Das Effects, representing my hometown of Teaneck, New Jersey. That's right across the bridge from George Washington, right across the bridge on the George Washington to New York City, where after Forever My Lady, Jodeci bought a house, and in Teaneck, they bought a house in Teaneck after Forever My Lady, the album dropped, and where after Ready to Die by Notorious B.I.G. sold, Chris Wallace bought a townhome for Junior Mafia. So you hear him talking about townhome or anything like that. He was talking about town and he bought that was in my little hometown. So I've been listening to rap for a long time, well before my junior year of high school, but that's really before that, where I was in high school when I first heard the Wu-Tang Clan. And it's sort of the thing that sticks in my memory. It's like there was a high school dance and went over to the gym and you heard it was the Method Man, and so you that whole bass and everything like that. That's a memory that's sort of stapled in my mind. So I'm curious, Brandon, what's some of your first rap memories?
Oh man, so I'm a little bit younger than you, and I'm from the South, so like it was just a very different set of experiences, right? But for me, the rap albums, but there's 3 rap albums I remember more than anyone. Lil Wayne's first, well, not first, but like I think there's this 3rd album, the Carter One, which was like just a huge deal in my neck of the woods. Like it was just like, and then like he had a bunch.
I was gonna say, is that the one that had? You gonna get ahead now? Now I'm gonna have to think about it.
Like Go DJ, Cash Money Millionaires was on there. So this was like not the next one after that. The Carter 2 was the one that was like huge, super huge.
Okay. So
where he went like quadruple platinum. This is the one before that. So it was like before he went, multiple times platinum or whatever. So that one, Jeezy's first album in what was that, 05, Thug Motivation 101. Because I had never heard anything sound like that before. Like it was just so loud and different, and like, but he's not a good rapper, and that's the beautiful thing about the album. He's not good at rapping. He's not really trying to impress you with his rapping ability, right? He's just telling you he sells drugs, and I'm gonna do it over these amazing beats. And I think he was at the time he was on Def Jam, right? So he had like this much bigger reach and a huger sound than like a local dude in Atlanta would have had, and yeah, it was amazing, right? So I love that album to death. And then pre Kanye losing his mind, I really loved Graduation. It was a tie between Graduation and Late Registration. But Graduation for me was probably the one because it literally came out the year I graduated high school. So like it was like, oh, this makes sense for me. I'm an upperly mobile, middle class black child. He's rapping about being that. This is great. So like I can relate it to it really well.
I hear exactly.
Same for the references to like doing X and stuff like that because I wasn't doing that much, but it sounded right. So yeah, those are probably my big 3 for me.
Okay,
for sure.
All right. Age range is an issue. So I'll ask you this, Mark, because I know your age. Did you watch Yo MTV Raps? when you were growing up? Do you remember that when it was on?
Yeah, of course I did. I would say that was one of my early memory, like hip hop memories. Like I went through many different phases of music, you know, and I think I really started getting into hip hop when I was in junior high school. Like I went from like a small private school to a bigger like public junior high school in my town, and some of the new people I met and friends I made, like I watched MTV all through the 80s. So like a lot of the stuff that I was, on the radio, Pod Top 40 radio. So I did have I did at one point, I think, like when I was like 11 years old, I might have had a copy. I did have a copy of License to Ill, but and that was huge. But when I really started getting into hip hop was a couple of years later, because some of the new friends I made were into it, and they're like, you got to listen to this. And the first albums that really stood out, that like my friends let me borrow these like cassette tapes, was Public Enemy, was Takes a Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back, and Fear of a Black Planet. And I just remember, listening to them and just like, it was nothing I've ever heard before. It's like the sound that, the beats, and half the stuff they were rapping about, it probably just flew over my head, but it didn't matter. Just the music was so good. And then that led to, getting into other artists, like, NWA, Ice Cube, stuff that was coming out in the early 90s, like LL Cool J's Mama Said Knock You Out. And then eventually Tribe Called Quest, Black Sheep. And then, to answer your question, all that led to, on Saturday mornings, I would get up and watch. I didn't watch it during the week, but on Saturday mornings, I'd watch the MTV, the top 10 video countdown.
Okay.
MTV Raps with Ed Lover and Dr. Dre. Mm-hmm. Every Saturday for like in the early 90s, like I wouldn't miss it. And it was like those videos would like, okay, then eventually Cypress Hill and, Redman, with like all those early 90s albums that are just classics in my mind. But I would say the biggest influences were probably, and I still kind of measure everything. I mean, they're probably the two of the best hip hop albums ever made, but just those early Public Enemy albums. But it was before their 91 album came out. It's like, so when that album came out, it's like, I can't wait for this, Apocalypse 91 was, wasn't on par with the other ones, but when that came out, I was like, I can't wait to get this record, because they were so, they were like my favorite artists at the time.
Well, you're talking Public Enemy is dating yourself, and maybe I recognize that I'm older than you, so I'm curious. Do you remember cassette singles, or is that past your time? And do you remember tapes. CD singles, and did you own any of those?
Singles, those were just like one song on the CD. Yeah, I mean, I know it. I think I know what they are, but like I don't think I ever owned one of those. Like, cassette tapes I had. I think that was like my first intro into music was cassette tapes, and then because I was born in '88, so that was kind of the thing. So
that's all you see. I'm born in '88, so your musical enlightening is what, the late '90s and the 2000s, then, huh?
Yeah. So
what is the first album you can think of that your parents questioned you about?
All right, here comes white boy hip hop history. All right.
So gotta be hip hop. I'm just curious. What's the
first No. I'm actually, that's it. It sparked some thoughts. So the first time I think I ever heard like a rap song was my mom bought me. This had to be like 1991, 1992. She bought me a CD that was like an MTV mix. So it's like different songs, and she bought it because it had that I'm Too Sexy song on it. Because as kids we're like, oh my God, this is hilarious. But Sir Mix-a-Lot was on there. Nice. And she didn't know it. And that song was, dirty. It's kind of like me and my brother thought it was hilarious. We're like, oh, what's a prostitute? And then from there it's just like, what's happening? And she took that CD away from us. But so that, I guess that was kind of like a spark of like, okay, this is an interest, because growing up it was like my parents introduced me to like country music, classical rock. Then I kind of the 90s happened, and there were like all these like bands that came out that I was like, oh, this is great. And that's when I actually started to learn to play music. So I gravitated towards that stuff. But then I would hear stuff like DMX, and it's just like, this is powerful stuff. Like, it's like it's very catchy, but it's like he's saying a lot of stuff. And then you would hear like the unedited version, and you're like, holy shit, this is crazy. And then, the Eminem and Dr. Dre thing happened. And I think that was like a big thing. And Beastie Boys were, they played the Beastie Boys on like rock stations.
BCN,
so it's kind of
I was gonna say, well, I'm saying BCN because that was the station in Boston that would play the rock station that would play it. But I was gonna say, if I could think of it here, but the alternative rock radio station in Atlanta that would play that would also play they also would have played I can't think of it. They would have probably played House of Pain too.
Yeah, they would play like Sabotage from the Beastie Boys because it had that guitar riff in it. And so I was like, okay, so and then that weird kind of mixture of rock and rap happened. Limp Bizkit. Yeah. Linkin Park, that kind of stuff. Yeah. So I was like, okay. Right. And then so that made me kind of wonder, it's like, okay, I like that form of music. So maybe I'll like, then I got into like, and from like, Chappelle Show, like Wu-Tang Clan, I listened to them, Old Dirty Bastard, of course. Like I had to know, I was like, what are these references? I got to know what he's talking about. And so, and also I grew up in like a Christian school. So any type of music that was forbidden, I was like, I got to listen to it. I got to know what's so bad about it. And that's it was just my personality. I was like listening to, Marilyn Manson was like a big deal back in the 2000s. I think he like shot up a school. No, I'm just kidding. He did. But that's what they told us. He was like, he's to blame.
You listen to this, you'll shoot everybody else.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, and I listened to it and I was like, it's really not good. Like, it's not that good. But yeah, so I guess I always kind of like dip my toes into the hip hop world. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you guys ever listen to like, have you guys heard of POD? They're like that.
Oh, that does sound familiar.
They were like a Christian. They were like a, huh?
Are they like a rap metal band?
Yeah, they're like a rap metal, but like they were also Christian. So, at a Christian school, I was like, okay, this is acceptable. And yeah, it was a weird, that was a cool genre, but I know it gets kind of made fun of now, but it's like, it was almost like an introduction to other stuff. So it kind of made those two worlds collide to where I could understand. And then like my brother had a bunch of like hip hop CDs, Ludacris, Juvenile. That was big when I was like in middle school.
400 Degrees.
Yeah.
You're in middle school. Yeah. You're in middle school right in the beginning of the 21st century.
Right. So like fifth grade, I was in fifth grade in the year 2000. And that's when like, so like Will Smith was big, his clean rap, he was big.
And you're letting me tease Will Smith, which is going to be
sorry.
But you mentioning the 21st century, a lot of the terminal topics that I touch on are 20th century topics, because I feel I could have asked about just terminal numbers like 23 or the 44th or 9/11, and those are all 20th century numbers that all kind of have responses. But we actually are getting close to the time for you guys to catch your flights, and we get to return to the list of poorly explained movies, which I'm sure everybody's.
We could have just kept talking about. We could have just kept talking about.
Hey, when we're going to get back to that. So there was a hidden theme. A third of the films that I gave you starred Eddie Murphy. So let's see who earns that final gate call. And if that throws off your answers already,
I definitely missed a bunch of them.
We'll go from there. So we'll start with the 10-point movies. A 13-year-old gets a job, moves to the big city, gets a loft, then returns home. Anyone?
That's
Big.
That is big. That is the concept of big broken down. That's exactly what happens. You're like, really? That's it? Yep. 13-year-old. Yeah. A grandfather reads a story to a sick boy.
Princess Bride.
Yeah, that's a Princess Bride. That's
Sheesh.
the 10 points. A small town girl moves to LA, walks the streets, and meets a businessman.
Pretty Woman.
Pretty Woman.
Pretty
It's
woman.
Pretty
Yeah.
Woman. It is Pretty Woman.
So far, Eddie
Walk the
Murphy,
streets is a very classy way of saying it.
Eddie Murphy has been in none of these movies.
We basically, that movie takes the story of a prostitute, and beautifies it and makes it some pretty thing. It's like, no, she's just a streetwalker, just a small town girl.
Yeah, but it was
streetwalker.
Julia
But
Roberts.
again, as we were talking about before the show, there's a classy way to do something bad, right?
Yeah,
Like
Yeah.
She was a classy streetwalker. She was a cracky streetwalker.
I've always heard that's a red flag. If a girl says, "Oh, Pretty Woman's my favorite movie," get out of there.
Mhm.
The last of the 10-point questions, quite possibly the greatest collection of Black comedians in one film, and it's not supposed to be a comedy, is
Life.
Harlem Nights.
Thank you, Mark. Harlem
Life?
Nights.
Harlem
What?
Nights.
Yeah.
What?
Richard
Life.
Pryor,
Isn't Red
Arsenio Hall,
Red Fox?
Red Fox.
Red Fox, yeah.
I was gonna say if I'm missing a couple that I'm gonna not.
There's a
go
black
over.
woman in there too who was super funny. Who played Della Reese? What was her name? It
I was
Della-
gonna say
wait.
Della Reese.
Della
There's
Reese,
a
yeah.
couple more, and they're older Black comedians that are in there. Yeah, and it's a comedy because you have these
Not that
people
funny.
and they're funny, but it's
Right.
not supposed to be a comedy. So
What? How can something be that funny and not have it be intentional?
I
'Cause
mean,
that movie's hilarious. It's one of the funniest movies I've ever seen.
it's one of the funniest films. It's one of my favorite funny films. But anybody got 40 points?
I got
And you got
30.
all 4 right?
I got 10
I'll be
points.
I'm honest. I got 4 right.
All right, the 20-point questions. So a man has his bike stolen, and his friend's actions help get it back.
Pee-wee's Big Adventure.
That's what I said.
That's
That's right.
Friday.
What?
Friday. Oh, dang
That's
it.
Friday.
That's not the wait a minute. I take his
Friday.
shit.
That is Friday because at the very
I mean, it
beginning of Friday-
is.
the very beginning of Friday. He's gonna cry when he goes home.
Oh,
right? Because he gets
Like, he gets his bike back at the end, but the movie ain't
gets his-
about
and
the
his-
bike.
and his-
Yeah, the movie Pee-wee's Big Adventure is
his
about
friend's
the bike.
actions help get it back.
I mean, it
He
did.
got it back for him.
At Pee-wee's
His
Big
friend-
Adventure, his friends get the bike back. Large
I'm
Marge,
disappointed.
come on.
I'm frustrated. Is there not a challenge?
That's
Do I have a
some-
flag?
that's some bullshit.
I will allow Pee-wee's Big Adventure to be used as a point.
There we go.
He made it
But
good.
that is Friday. That is the movie
Hmm.
Friday. So
The thing of Point of Friday is man gets fired on his day. The man gets
Yeah. I thought it was dude gets fired on his day off,
Did
and
I
then
say these were well explained movies?
You
or
took like a
poorly
little
explained films?
side quest from the movie. I was like, oh, that's the whole movie. Ridiculous.
Okay, so you're really gonna hate this one then. A recent college graduate takes over the family business.
Tommy Boy.
That's the Godfather.
That is Tommy Boy.
All right.
It's not the Godfather.
That's
That's
a
it could be
recent college
Tommy.
graduate takes over the family business. That's Tommy Boy.
Did Michael graduate in Godfather? You
Yeah,
graduated
I
from
thought he
college?
was a college boy.
Yeah,
He went
it's
to
all-
war and
Yeah.
came back.
He
And,
lived in Godfather.
that
I didn't
was-
write
He went
anything
to
down,
war.
so I'm
He
just.
went to the war.
Oh,
I thought he graduated college. But
I like how his
college boy.
brain,
Either
his brain
way,
went to the
as
Godfather.
You know.
opposed to we know that Tommy graduated
Yeah, that's
just under a decade.
Well, it took it 7 years. 7 years.
All right, next film. A girl suffers through a hazing ritual and later has her first kiss. This is easily one of my favorite films of all time. Dazed and Confused.
Never been kissed?
No.
So I went Mean Girls there. And
I was gonna say Carrie, but that didn't end the way.
Yeah.
That's okay.
It's the third storyline third or fourth storyline in Dazed and Confused. If you look at it through the eyes of the freshman girl who ends up kissing the nerd. No, all right.
And nobody,
Go back and watch
the girl
it and
that
you'll
that
see
nobody
that
likes
it's-
in the
It's once again, it's a poorly described film.
the wet blanket in the movie.
And the last of the 20-point questions: Butler sees all, invests wisely, and ends up on a boat.
So I went Batman here.
Mr.
It's a very
Deeds.
poor way to describe trading places.
Trading places. Oh,
Oh, man.
yeah. That's a good way, yeah.
The butler saw everything, hence why he's able to invest wisely. And at the end, they're all rich, and he's on the boat because he got paid. So 120. Anybody 120? No. Even close. All right, so then we'll race through the 30-point questions then. I've already named 2 Eddie Murphy films so far. These next 2 are Eddie Murphy films. A woman watches her older sister being courted by 2 men, then gets a chance with one at the very end.
Boomerang.
Coming to America.
It's Coming to America. That's Laney. Laney's got that one right, or at least figured it out now. Boomerang is a man is embarrassed by his father, and then his friend steals his girl. That's Boomerang.
Gotcha. That's Boomerang.
Because that is
I got the
that
two
is
confused.
exactly what
Oh
it is.
man,
Got the 2 confused. I
Is
had
that the
Boomerang
next
for the
one?
other one.
Is
Yeah,
that the next
That is
one?
the next one. That is the next
I thought it
one
was.
as
I
well.
put Spider-Man.
How did Peter's father didn't embarrass
No,
him?
no. Harry Osborn. Harry Osborn
Oh.
hates his
Oh.
dad because that's that whole scene, and then Harry Osborn steals
Okay.
Mary Jane. Spider-Man.
I'll give you. I'll allow that. I'll give you.
No, that's all
Spider-Man
right. That's
back.
all right. No, that's fine.
I mean, it sounds like you need points. That's why. A dead man has to prove he's not afraid.
Sixth Sense.
Sixth Sense.
Is defending your life, which
I
is
was gonna say Ghost.
Albert Brooks
Sheesh.
film from the 90s, which is a really good film with him and Meryl Streep. And yeah, if you've not seen it, then you should go see Defending Your Life. And the last one is 80s classic, A Man is Forced to Cross-Dress for Employment.
Tootsie.
Which is Tootsie.
You could also argue that that's Mrs. Doubtfire too.
That's what I
argue.
put. That's what Mrs. Doubtfire.
You could, but he really cross-dresses to try and see his kids, not necessarily for employment.
He was employed. He was a nanny.
I'm not. Once again, I'm not going to argue against it. I'm saying the.
And then he got a job at the end doing a TV show. That's employment.
All of these are correct statements. So who's got the highest score? Basically, what
It is not me.
How many you got? The first 4 were worth 10 points. The next 4, 20. The final first 30 worth 30. So
I got 100.
you got 100, Brandon.
Oh, I'm pulling in last boys at 40 points. What did I get?
I got 3 of the 10. I got 70.
You got 70.
Yeah.
Huh. So Lady,
I got all 410, and I got Tootsie. That's it.
I got.
Oh, you got 100 of that.
Okay. You're not. You told me Pee Wee's Big Adventure. 80 points. I'll say 80 because I counted Pee Wee's Big Adventure, but I'll cross that out. So 80.
That still puts you in the lead, but
Yeah, I know, but I
I've
don't
got
want-
a bonus question if we want, because Brandon and Mark, you both are at 70, right?
I'm at 40.
Oh.
I mean, I appreciate the look, though. That's very nice
40,
of you.
So 40, 70, 80. I could give you the bonus question if you wanted or not. It's going to say there's no point. It would just be for me reading the bonus question, or I could just go straight to the close, which is
Go for it.
well, you know what though, Lane, you've got actual things to promote, so we can go straight to the final gate call, and I'll save my bonus question for another day. If you're ready,
to promote.
you just got 30 seconds to say whatever you want to say. So, you know, we everybody's got places to go. So
Sure.
What is
30
yours?
seconds.
30 seconds.
Let's see. Trying to think. I've got some comedy shows coming up in January. I've got one January the 13th at Academia in Athens. It's going to be a good one. I've got one January the 5th in Marietta, I think. Pontoon Brewery. Look it up. Maybe it's Johns Creek. I don't know. That's it. And that's it. Yeah. Look me up on YouTube. I've got some stuff up there, some jokes, some stand up. And yeah.
Awesome.
All right.
Good stuff.
Floor is yours. Thank you very much.
Oh, no, I still have 30 more seconds I got left.
I mean, if you want 10 more, if you want 10, 15,
That's all right. I forfeit the rest of my time.
Well, how would you describe Andre the Giant to a child of the 21st century and make them believe he was an actual person? Here's hoping you would describe this time with me today as entertaining, and conclude you will return to the terminal. I'd like to thank my guests, Brandon, Mark, and Lainey, and wish you all a safe flight home. Have a good evening.
All right, y'all.